best friend. Actually, she's my only friend, only family member I have.
Before we get into today's video, I just want to let you guys know that this video is for educational purposes only. Please remember to be kind to everybody everywhere, in your everyday life, in your home, in the grocery store, and especially in the comment section down below. Please do not show hate to anybody, anywhere. So good morning, good morning, good morning. How is everybody doing today? I hope you all are having an amazing day. I hope you all are getting geared up for a wonderful weekend. I hope you all have had a wonderful week. I know some of y'all sports parents out there are probably right about this time getting ready to start spending every single weekend at a field, football field, soccer field, baseball field, some type of field. So in today's video, oh my goodness. I mean, the ways that people can relate to this story. This is going to be a very interesting video and something that I think we can learn from. Before we get into it, though, I do want to let you guys know, if you don't already know, hi, my name is Christina. I do have a second channel, which is Casually Christina. We just do things more casually over there. I also have a Patreon. My Patreon is for 18 and up, and over there we talk about more personal stuff. We go live over there, and there's a $2 tier for all of the true crime stuff that cannot go onto YouTube due to their terms and policies. That goes over on my Patreon under the $2 tier. Just make sure you read the full about section of what each tier offers before you join. I am also on Snapchat, Instagram, and Facebook, and I'm also on Like to Know It, and Like to Know It is a platform where I post links to a lot of things that you guys ask about, things that I really love or like or use, all kinds of things like this top, different makeup items, shoes that I work out with, gym equipment, pots and pans, just literally anything and everything that I can link that I use, like, or y'all ask about. I do that on my Like to Know It. All of those platforms are linked down in the description box if you would like to come and check me out. So before we get into talking about Maribel today, I really want to ask y'all this question, and I am going to be reading the comments because I want to see how many of y'all have become self-aware about certain things about yourself. What red flag or something that you do that you have learned in your life that if you do this thing, you have got to watch out for yourself? I'll give you an example. I've got a family member who is a male, and anytime he chooses the easy path with something, it's a slippery slope because he tends to melt into easy and then he gets into the slippery slope. Myself, when I have this feeling of feeling sorry for somebody, like, oh my gosh, my heart's hurting, I'm carrying their burden, and then I want to help, I become very vulnerable in that position. And that's something that I have to watch about myself. That's going to bring us to the story of Maribel Ramos, okay? I'm going to do like I typically do. I'm going to tell you guys the whole entire story to the best of my ability with the public information that is already out there. Then at the end of the video, I will tell y'all my opinion. So stay to the end if you want to hear my opinion. So let's just start at the beginning. Maribel Ramos was born on November 22nd of 1976 in Mexico. Her family moved to the U.S. not long after Maribel's birth. From early on in life, everyone just loved and adored Maribel. She was compassionate, empathetic, she was very hardworking, and very ambitious. Growing up, Maribel dreamed of becoming a police officer one day. And straight out of high school, Maribel started working on that goal when she became a security guard at a local Kmart. Now, not long after that, though, Maribel took a step even further and she enlisted in the U.S. Army in August of 2001. As you guys can probably remember, just 1 month later, the 9/11 attack happened. Because of this, Maribel was quickly shipped off to Iraq to serve her first tour of duty. Maribel went on to serve 2 full combat tours before being honorably discharged in 2008. After being discharged, Maribel moved in with her mother and she enrolled at a California State University to pursue a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. Now, Maribel continued to live with her mother all the way up until her mother passed away in 2009. Now, after her mother's passing, Maribel got her own apartment in Orange, California. She asked her sister Lucy if she wanted to move in with her. Maribel had a very, very strong relationship with her sister and her sister's daughter. But Lucy said that she was content with her current living situation. And so she told Maribel that she wasn't going to move in with her unless her sister Maribel just could not find any other roommate or another option. So Maribel got on Craigslist. And it's, you hear some stories of Craigslist. Back in the day, Craigslist was a very useful tool. And I believe that it still is to a lot of people in a lot of ways. I mean, it was like the main source of searching up certain things for sale or trade or even roommates. And so she got on Craigslist and she posted a roommate wanted ad. She ended up getting a few responses, but one in particular stood out to her. It was from a man named KC Joy. KC was a 55-year-old Korean immigrant from Knoxville, Tennessee. KC said in his message to her that he had just recently moved to California and he was looking for a place to stay. KC described himself as an easygoing man who wouldn't be a bother to Maribel, who was much younger than him, and KC had a dog and Maribel had a dog. So it seemed like it could be convenient. Now, you have to think about how Maribel's probably thinking. It is scary and nerve-wracking to have a roommate regardless. Have any of y'all ever been roommates with your best friend or a friend? I mean, I'm telling you right now, that will either make or break a friendship living together. As a matter of fact, even some relationships, once people move in with each other, they're like, ew, actually, yeah, I don't like you. But in this situation, Maribel is younger and she's got this guy who is an immigrant. Her parents were immigrants. He's 55. He's chill, relaxed. He's, not going to bother anybody or do anything. And it seems like it could work out. So Maribel decided to meet KC to see if he was indeed a good fit. She was very smart about it. She ended up bringing her sister Lucy with her, and both of them said that KC seemed like he was a really nice guy. He seemed very quiet. He was polite. And KC told Maribel and Lucy that he had never been married. He didn't have any of his own children. And Maribel thought that KC was at the perfect match. So she agreed, yes, she would let KC move in and be her roommate. As Maribel got to know KC more, it truly seemed like he didn't have anyone in his life. He was a complete homebody who rarely left the house. Maribel decided to introduce him to her family and started inviting him out for family events. So now she's got him and she's taken him on as more than just a friend, but basically family at this point. I mean, they'd all go out to eat. They'd play games, they'd celebrate like big family milestones together, and everyone seemed to really like KC, and Maribel started considering him a genuine friend and like a family member. But then KC decided that he wanted to be more than just friends. It was the summer of 2012 when Lucy, Maribel's sister, said that she got a call from KC saying that he was in love with Maribel, okay? Not just a little bit, a lot of it. KC told Lucy that he wanted to marry Maribel and have children with her. Lucy said that this was so completely unexpected, and she went on to tell KC that Maribel still was quite young and that she did not think that KC was going to be a good match for her. She explained that Maribel only considered KC as a friend and that it would never be more than that. She reminded KC that he was a really good man and that he deserved someone who'd love him back in return. Lucy said that it seemed like KC understood and he handled the rejection well. But in reality, KC was not taking no for an answer. KC started to do things that he thought would make him more like appealing to Maribel. It is said that at some point, Maribel told him that she thought he would look good with a tattoo. So he went out and literally got a tattoo. He also went out and got over $10,000 worth of plastic surgery in order to make his face look younger. He even offered to pay for everything to take Maribel on a cruise. Maribel continued to keep that boundary with KC very clear that they were only friends, nothing more. It seemed like KC understood this, but really, he was becoming more and more obsessed with Maribel. However, no one Not Maribel's family, not her friends, not even Maribel thought that KC's obsession would escalate as far as it did. On May 3rd of 2013, KC reached out to Lucy, Maribel's sister, to tell her that Maribel hadn't come home and that he was very, very worried about her. He told her that he even called 911 to report her missing, but he said that the police told him that it hadn't been long enough yet for her to be not seen, and so they couldn't take it as a missing persons report just yet. Lucy says that she told KC to relax. I can just see her now on the phone calm down, KC, it's fine. She's probably just out doing something. Don't worry. She's probably thinking oh my gosh, she didn't come home over the night, and now he's calling 911 claiming that she's missing. She's probably ignoring his phone calls. This is probably what she is thinking. She reminded him also that what Maribel does is none of his business. She just assumed that Maribel was out having fun and KC was actually just jealous. However, Maribel also never showed up for her weekly softball game with friends. This was concerning enough that Maribel's friend reached out to Lucy as well. This is when Lucy started to worry. Lucy went over to Maribel and KC's house to have a look around. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary or to set off alarm bells, except for the fact that Maribel's bed was not made. This was very out of character for Maribel, especially given the fact that she was in the military and she always made her bed every single morning. This is when Maribel's family made the decision to report her missing. Investigators immediately started trying to figure out what happened to Maribel. They started with reviewing surveillance footage from 7:15 p.m. the night before she went missing. Maribel had gone to the main office building in her apartment complex to drop off her rent check. This was the last time that Maribel was seen in public. Investigators started interviewing all of the people close to Maribel, including her family, her friends, and even some of the men that she had recently gone on dates with. As the investigators continued to question people, one name continued to come up: KC Joy. Everyone was suspicious of him, and for good reason. Before Maribel's disappearance, KC was the last person to see her. When KC was interviewed by the detectives, he told them that on the evening of May 2nd, he and Maribel had gotten into an argument over their rent payment. KC hadn't given Maribel his portion of the rent, which left her paying all of the bills herself. This, understandably, frustrated Maribel to the point of telling KC that he needed to move out the very next day. KC had so many excuses and said that he could not move out the next day. At this point, Maribel was so frustrated that she called a man named Paul that she had been seeing recently and put him on speakerphone. He told KC that if KC was not moved out the next day, that he was going to come over and move KC out himself. After this argument, KC told the detectives that he went on a drive for about an hour, and when he came back, Maribel was gone. At the end of the interview, one detective noticed that KC had fresh scratches all over his arms. When he asked KC where they were from, KC had what the detectives considered to be a seemingly logical answer.
How'd you get all these scratches on you?
We go to Eisenhower Park all the time. You go exactly, we pick up other ponds. We pick up fishing lines all the time. You go there, fishing lines.
Those are from fishing?
No. I'm ready to explain.
He said that he had been digging in bushes that had thorns. This detective went to the location that KC described, and sure enough, there were bushes with thorns. Something else strange had happened during this interview. They noticed that KC seemed to have a very strong accent, even though he had been living in the U.S. for quite some time, and were told by others that KC spoke very good English. According to the detectives, it seemed like KC could be possibly putting on this accent to make it harder for him to be understood. After KC's interview was over, they ended up letting him go. They didn't have enough to charge him or even hold him, though they were very suspicious of him. Then the investigators were made aware of a 911 call from Maribel from 12 days before she went missing.
Hi, Orange Boys. Okay, well, I just want to let you know that I have a roommate that should be leaving at the end of the month. We had a conversation today that he kind of freaked me out. I'm not feeling comfortable around him anymore. I'm feeling threatened. At the end of the month, I want him to leave, and from now until then, I just feel like I have to my door, which I will, because he sounded like he would hurt me. Like, it was weird.
Why are you crying?
Because I'm afraid. I'm not comfortable with him anymore. I'm just like calling so that you guys know that if something happens, that I did it because I was trying to defend myself.
This is when the investigators had a strong gut feeling that KC Joy had done something terrible to Maribel. They just didn't know what yet. As investigators started looking into KC's past, they found a sister who was still living in Tennessee. When the investigators contacted this sister, she told them that KC was an angry man with a violent temper. She said that after her and KC's parents passed away, they had a huge falling out over their inheritance that ended up leading to her getting a restraining order against KC and KC moving away to California. As the days went by and the search for Maribel continued, KC was spending a lot of time commenting on online forums about Maribel and their relationship. As you can see here, he's just like going on and on about how close they were, and he just seemingly spent a lot of time in these forums. KC even attended a vigil that was held for Maribel, but he stayed in the back and he kept to himself. Lucy, Maribel's sister, said that one day when she came to the house with her church friends to pray for Maribel, she asked KC if he wanted to join in on the prayer, and he declined. She said that he just sat there feet away from watching them pray, which, I mean, in one hand, you could kind of think, well, maybe he just doesn't have that faith or belief, which it kind of just feels like, I mean, if your friend, the person that you love, that you're spending so much time in these forums talking about, you're willing to probably do just about anything. But nevertheless, that's totally his right. But you can imagine, like, they're all there praying and he is feet away, just like watching them, just like, it had to be a very awkward feeling. KC had even given interviews to the media.
Best friend, actually, she's my only friend, only family member I have.
Then one time, when the detectives were at the house searching for clues, KC was seen sitting in his car, watching them search through with binoculars. I need y'all to think about this. The investigators are in there searching, and KC is watching them through binoculars like he's the detective. All of this behavior seemed very odd to not only Maribel's friends and family, but to the investigators as well. But they didn't have any like concrete evidence against KC, so they decided to start tracking his every move. There was a team dedicated specifically just to follow KC 24/7. As they were tracking him, they noticed that KC spent a lot of time at the local public library. He would go in this public library and he would check out one of their laptops to use. The investigators would literally sit outside of the library and have KC's laptop mirrored to theirs so they could see exactly what he was doing. As they watched, they saw KC search for updates about Maribel, and he'd Google things like, how long does it take for a body to decay? Which, mind you gotta give it to him a little bit, because checking out the laptop is something that we have not heard before. Because we know that they come and search your phones, your laptops, all of your devices, any devices they think that you may have used at work or at home or family member's house, But going to the library and checking it out and doing it, he thought he was one step ahead of them, but he didn't realize that they were literally watching everything that he was doing. But still, that wasn't enough to convict him or arrest him for anything. It wasn't until one day, just 2 weeks after Maribel went missing, KC checked out a laptop at the library and went straight to Google Maps. Once he was on Google Maps, he zoomed in on a tree in a remote canyon. After that, KC immediately deleted his search history. Investigators thought that this was very specific and unusual, so of course, they sent a team right on over to that area where he searched and zoomed in at. After only 30 minutes of searching, investigators located 36-year-old Maribel's body in a shallow grave near the same tree that KC had zoomed in on. On May 17th, the police went over to KC and Maribel's house to arrest KC. However, when KC saw the police cars pulling up, he ran and he jumped out a back window. Even so, officers were able to grab KC before he got away. KC was arrested, taken in, and charged with first-degree premeditated murder. Sadly, Maribel's remains were too decomposed to determine her cause of death. Because of this, investigators were only able to give their best guess as to what may have happened to Maribel. They believe because Maribel had extensive combat training and experience that KC must have attacked her when she wasn't expecting it. They think that possibly when she was asleep, he smothered her. Otherwise, they believe it would have been too hard for him to overpower her. Clearly, she was a fighter and she fought back. They did find a pair of Maribel's pajamas folded up in her closet with a small blood stain on it. They also found Maribel's dog tags wrapped up in KC's clothes, like he was keeping them. Even though they didn't have an overwhelming amount of physical evidence, in July of 2014, KC was indeed found guilty of second-degree murder at his trial. He was sentenced to 15 years to life in prison. Ever since he was arrested, KC has always maintained his innocence and said that he did not do this. At his sentencing, he said, "My family wants me to apologize, which I cannot apologize for something I haven't done. Maybe someday the truth will come out. Maybe I'll just die in prison." Maribel's family, on the other hand, believes wholeheartedly that the investigators got it right. And they say that they believe that KC deserves to be put away for life. And I will say that I agree with the family. It's just all too coinky-dink, right? The fact that he literally zoomed in on the exact spot, the exact tree where she was buried, please. You know, like, I feel like this is, have you ever been in a situation like Maribel where, I mean, obviously not to this extent, but she did everything right. She vetted a roommate. She took her sister with her. They weighed all the options. I mean, she really trusted this guy. She thought that he was a really good friend and was close like family. He was going to family events, knew her whole family. I mean, how much safer could she have been? It's just so devastating. And what was this guy thinking? Like, he must have been just sitting in that house and obsessing more and more. And she was just innocently thinking, like, he's my friend. Like, oh, like, he's lonely. I'm going to take him. We're going to go on a cruise together. We'll go hang out. We'll go to dinner. We'll go walk our dogs. And she probably really valued him being there, but she did not know the things that he was thinking the whole time. It is just devastating and heartbreaking. And she was a vet who went and served for our country, served and sacrificed. Just a terrible loss all the way around. I don't really know in this situation what she could have done differently. There are laws in place that the moment that she felt uncomfortable with him being in the home, or they were arguing, or he wasn't paying his fair share, she couldn't just call the police and have him kicked out. It doesn't work like that. You know, it takes time, especially when you're living together. And I just don't really see anything she could have done differently. And that is really sad. KC thought he was so smart that he got himself caught because they were watching him. Thank God they were. Thank God they were following him 24/7 and looking at what he was doing on that computer, because otherwise, who knows what would have happened. Maybe she would still be missing. Maybe the family wouldn't have the answers that they need. But at least they know something. And it is weird that he could get out in just 15 years after that. But y'all let me know what y'all think down below. Other than that, I love y'all. Thank y'all so much for being here and watching this video. I hope y'all have a wonderful weekend. And I will see y'all next week for another video. Love you guys. Bye.